other thing we're going to do is white balance here.
Can you put this on here?
All right. Is it all right if I touch your pad with the microphone? Well, we are here on Sunday, March 5th, 2023, on behalf of the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. We are here to interview, can you say your name?
Catherine Mickle.
Yes, and I am Krystin Anderson here with
Donovan Carter.
and it's around 4 p.m. here at 4:30 here at the lovely home of Miss Mickle.
So thank you so much for your time today, Ms. Mickle. We really appreciate you hosting us here in your home. Your home is lovely. So we want to ask first about, we talked a little bit about how you're not from Gainesville.
Right.
Can you talk about where you were born and where you grew up and when that was?
Oh, yes, be happy to. First of all, we're so happy to have you here. I've heard of Samuel Proctor oral history for years and years during the time I've been here in Gainesville. But originally, I was born in Augusta, Georgia. And my parents moved from Augusta, Georgia when I was in elementary school to Jacksonville, Florida. I know very little about Augusta other than a couple of street names because I was a little girl. And we moved to Jacksonville, Florida during elementary school days, and I remember going to what we call Edward Waters College Elementary School on Kings Road. That's where I first started my elementary education. And from there, I enrolled in A.L. Lewis Junior High School there in Jacksonville, Florida, 7th through 9th grade, and then from 10th through 12th, I attended and graduated from Stanton High School in 1953, which was the last high school in that particular building on Broad Street. So my class of 1953 was the last graduating class from Stanton High School. They built a new school called New Stanton High School out near Edward Waters College. But at Stanton High School, I have a lot of fond memories because I admired my teachers, number one. And I enjoyed singing what we call the concert chorale at Stanton High School. And I just had good days there. I tried out several times to be a member of the band with emphasis on becoming a majorette. But I could not twirl that baton. So there goes being a majorette. And also Mr. McFarland had a very outstanding band. I think he was a graduate of Florida A&M University, or college at that time. So anyway, I graduated from Stanton in 1953. Had no idea I would be going to college after I graduated from high school. But on one particular day there at Stanton High School, the principal had an announcement read that President Richard Vernon Moore, president at that time of Bethune-Cookman College, would be speaking to the seniors, the graduating seniors. And if you want to go to college, he's also recruiting students for Bethune-Cookman. And if you're interested and would like to talk with him after assembly, remain in the auditorium to talk to Dr. Moore. And I was one of the few that remained in the auditorium to talk to Dr. Moore. And went to the secretary's office, and our principal of Stanton High School was Mr. Terrell. I went to his office, and the secretary said, well, Dr. Moore is in a conference now with Mr. Terrell. You'll have to. I said, well, I'll be late to class then. She says, well, no, we'll write you an admit to go to your class if you're running late. I waited. That was the best thing that could have happened to me, to wait to speak to Dr. Richard V. Moore.
Wow.
I was scared. And I was hoping, that he would say, oh, yes, you sing in in the concert choir here at Stanton, no problem. You're in, you come on, you can. It doesn't work like that. So he said, well, let me take your name down. He took his pen out, he had a little pad in there, he took my name. And I said to myself, I'm not going to hear from him. And I left the office, went on to my next class. And that was the best thing I could have done. Do you know I heard from Bethune-Cookman and Dr. Richard B. Moore within a week or two.
Wow.
Offering me not a full scholarship, but what was called then a part tuition scholarship with work study.
Nice. Yeah.
They sent the papers. I followed through. I filled them out. And the rest is history.
Wow.
I was able to go to college.
That's amazing.
Didn't have any money saved at all, but that's how I got to Bethune-Cookman College, through work study. And of course, I ended up working in Dr. Moore's office. And I worked during summers. And I was on like work study, and my room and board would never be on time each month, you know. I had to get an extension from the business office to get a meal book, you know, and that's how we had meal books, you know, in order to eat, you know. You had to get an extension if your parents didn't send that money on time, you had to get a meal book. So then, during most of my time there, I remember, you know, being late, but they knew the money was coming. And so they were able to issue me a meal book, and I was able to eat and sing in the concert choir there at Bethune-Cookman. Not on the, you know, the top singer, nothing like that, but just being there you know, a part of the group. And we traveled the United States and traveled there in Daytona a lot, across the, on the river there at Princess Alsina Hotel, a really large hotel there in Daytona Beach. I think it's still there now, Princess Alsina. And people there would make donations and give donations to the college because they knew that Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune built that college on 5 little girls, faith in God, and $1.50. So we were always, when we were singing, we were raising money for the college. And the Methodist churches there and all over sponsored the choir. And that's how Bethune-Cookman was able to survive a lot of, you know, years there from proceeds that's coming in from our singing.
Wow. What part, for 2 questions. What part did you sing? Second.
Soprano.
Soprano?
I wasn't the high soprano. I was like a mezzo soprano. And I never will forget the girl from Jacksonville, Florida, Patricia Mendez. She was opera soprano, and she was in my graduating class. And when she finished Stanton, I think she studied in Italy, and she was over there for years.
Wow, she was very good.
Yeah, and to my knowledge now, she's still living, she's back now, of course, it's been many years, and she's residing now in Jacksonville.
Wow, that's
Patricia
amazing.
Mendez. She sings the Italian street song. Oh my God.
Very awesome.
Next question, what type of music did you sing mostly? Was it mostly like hymns and gospel songs?
I like
or?
the hymns a lot.
Hymns?
Yeah, I like the hymns.
What's your favorite hymn, would you say?
The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? An Amazing Grace.
Those are both really good
And his
ones.
eye is on the sparrow, and I
that
know he watches me.
I love that one too.
I sing that a lot in my choir here at the church. I used to, but since the pandemic, we don't have a choir anymore. We have what is called praise team now.
True.
And they, you know, we just don't have a choir anymore because the same as though the trend now, it's a different style of music, but you can't get away from the hymns. But we don't sing hymns every day, not like we used to. But music is music. I just learned to appreciate all of it. We did a lot of spirituals too.
Yeah, spirituals.
Rock of my soul in the bosom of Abraham, rock of my soul. That was, yeah. That was beautiful. And so I enjoyed my days there at Bethune-Cookman. And I guess I can say I should I really loved my days there because that's where I met my husband, and that's why I'm here sitting here.
Yes.
I met my husband there at Bethune-Cookman. Well, he graduated in 50, and I graduated in 57, so he was all out, you know.
And can you tell us that story about how you met your husband?
Well, yes, I might as well tell it now. I was living on campus in Curtis Hall, and I carried some clothes. My husband was a tailor, but his major is math and a minor in science. But I carried some clothes about a block from the campus. It was a dry cleaning and an alteration shop. I didn't know who owned it, I just carried it there to be clean. And the owner, whose name was Robert Wright, who is a brother to my pastor here, was my pastor, the Reverend Thomas Wright. I didn't know all of this, you know, I just wanted to carry my clothes to be clean. And he was like a brother to, then, my husband that I had not met. But it was something he said about me that he thought his friend Andrew Mickle would like to talk to me. He didn't know anything about me. He didn't know whether I was married or had children. But he knew my husband was a recent divorcee.
Okay.
And he thought that he would like to talk to me. And at that time, my husband had 2 little boys. One of those little boys was Judge Mickle.
Okay.
And the other little boy was Andrew Mickle, that we lost first. He was a Vietnam veteran, and Andrew passed about 11 years ago. And of course, Judge Mickle just recently passed. But Reverend Wright's brother, that I didn't know Reverend Wright because I hadn't moved here. I was in college. But he had a brother in Daytona who was a tailor, who had a shop of cleaners and a tailor shop. And Bob Wright knew that his friend was, had 2 little boys, and I guess he needed someone to talk to. And so I was like a freshman or sophomore living on campus.
Wow.
And it was a no-no for girls living on campus. You don't talk to men out in the street, you know. They called him, he had graduated, you know. So anyway, but that's, and then when I went back to get my dry cleaning, this Andrew Mickle happened to be in the shop.
Oh.
Not by design, because Bob Wright didn't know when I was going to get my clothes from the cleaners, but he knew his friend at that time was employed full-time at a clothing store in Daytona Beach called Dobie's, very exclusive men's store. And that's where my husband worked. He didn't graduate and go into teaching. He graduated and went into the business of doing alterations. So that's where he worked full-time. But then some evenings he would come by his best friend's shop, Bob Wright, and do work there with Bob, which was a second job. And so that's how we met. Eventually he called me at Curtis Hall, this Andrew Mickle. And the rest is history. We were able to make arrangements, and he was able to get me back to the dorm on time, because we had what was called a matron of the dormitory. And the young men had to get them back on time. But on Sunday afternoons, it was just something special about Andrew Mickle, because of course he was a gentleman, number one. Very polite, opened the door for you, very polite. And on Sunday afternoons, he would check me out of the dormitory. We would ride over Daytona on the beach and to look at the beautiful homes and the waters, and things like that would make you care for a person. So that's, I think, how we clicked, because he liked the things that I liked. And he was a gentleman, and so, so much for that part of the interview, yeah. So that's how we met. And then I can go on to when I graduated and got here and came here.
Oh, actually, can you describe more of what you did on campus while you were at Bethune-Cookman?
What I did on campus?
Yes. What was campus life like then for you?
Campus life was, It was just, it was really organized. It was organized, you know, girls in the girls' dormitory, boys were in the boys' dormitory. We didn't have a student union like we have in colleges today. We had what was called a little log cabin, or cabin in the pines or something like that, where students would go, you know, to recreate on campus. And you had a time to go in and out. And on Sunday afternoons, we had what was Vesper. We had at 3 o'clock, we had to be in our blue suits and white tailored shirts. And we had to go to Vesper every evening at 3 o'clock. And if you go downtown in Daytona, these are the freshmen now, you were identified by your uniform. We had on black, well, actually, as a matter of fact, when they sent the credentials of what you need to bring to Cookman, you had to have your white tailored blouse, nothing cut low, buttons, and a blue suit. And then you had a little cap you wore on your head, like a little beanie. We call it a little beanie skull cap. When you go downtown in Daytona, you wouldn't go down just in clothes like this if you were a student at Bethune-Cookman. You had to dress. And so I kind of liked that. And then the bell tolled too. At the time you were supposed to be at a certain place, you were here. This was one of the jobs of one of the students who had work study. His job was to ring the bell. And I never will forget that I was there on campus. I was a sophomore when Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune passed. I was on campus. I saw her walk the campus.
Wow.
I visited her home, Mary McLeod Bethune's home on campus. So it just felt like home for me. I felt safe there. And that was kind of like what college life was like for me in those first 1 or 2 years.
Okay, wonderful. And was it while you were at Bethune-Cookman that you joined your sorority?
My senior year.
Okay.
Because at that time I was busy, you know, working, work study. I was singing with the concert chorale. We had to practice, and I just didn't have time. I didn't see time in my schedule to pledge a sorority. But my senior year, I pledged. And I pledged during my senior year at the same time before I came off campus to intern here. We had to intern like for 9 weeks before you could satisfy the requirements to get a teaching certificate to teach in the school system. You had to have internship. So I took an internship here in Daytona, in Gainesville. Number 2, the first reason I couldn't go back to my Duval County because they had a policy you can't go back to your hometown to intern at any of the schools where you grew up or went to high school. So you had to go in another county to intern. So Mickle was here already because he came in 1955 to teach tailoring here at Lincoln High School. He didn't know anything about Gainesville, but he was kind of burned out, he told me, and he was tired of the men clothing. And his friend Bob Wright told him, he says, well, Andrew, he says, I hear that they're looking for a tailoring teacher there in Gainesville. That you may want to apply for that job. They're building a new school, and Professor Aquin Jones is the principal, and they want someone with the knowledge of tailoring to come and help draw the plans how a tailoring classroom should be laid out and how they can build it, what is needed, you know. And so I didn't know anything about that in 1955. I was trying to graduate. But he came in 55, and after he got this job here, I think that's when we met. And so I told him, and he knew I couldn't go to Duval County and intern, so he asked Professor Jones if they had need for an intern in business education at Lincoln High School. And Professor Jones told him, yes, I think we can use a young lady to come in and do her practice teaching here, and that's how I got here.
Wow.
And then I did my internship here at what we call the New Lincoln High School. That's now Lincoln Middle School.
Okay.
Because when my husband came in 1955, he was at the old A. Quinn Jones School now, and that was the Lincoln School back in those days on 10th Street and 7th Avenue. That's where his first job was. But at the same time, he was helping to make plans for the tailoring new classroom at the new school, at Lincoln High School.
So if I can ask, before you came from Daytona, what did you know about Gainesville? What have you heard?
Not a thing.
Nothing.
Had never, as a matter of fact, not just Gainesville. While living in Jacksonville, I don't ever remember our having gone like places like St. Augustine or Tallahassee, or because we just didn't travel during those days. You know, we were busy trying to survive back then. And so I didn't know a thing about Gainesville. And but I knew Andrew Mickle, and I had faith in him. He had met my mother, and I had faith in him. As a matter of fact, he had inquired with the teachers. One, her name was Mrs. Willa Gaines. Mrs. Willa Gaines taught elementary education here, and he found me a room. She had an extra room, and she gave me her front bedroom. And so I stayed with her 9 weeks. Mrs. Willa Gaines, over there on Northwest 7th Avenue. And I had transportation. I didn't have a car. I didn't even know how to drive then. So he was already working here. So he would pick me up, and he carried me to work and brought me back in the afternoon. And Mrs. Gaines told him, I said, listen, you can't be here after 9 o'clock at night on any night. She needs to be in this house. So he abided by the rules and regulations, and then getting back to the sorority. That's when I was on probation to pledge the sorority. During the time I was on internship, but I didn't know that the pledge period was going to come at the time I would be interning. But my husband, Andrew Mickle, during that week of pledging, after school, he drove me to Daytona and got me back in time to go to work the next morning to do my internship.
Wow.
Wow.
Now, what do you think of that?
Wow, that's something.
That's dedication.
And I never will forget where the new Santa Fe College is now, downtown on University Avenue. Right in that area, not too far from, it was across the street maybe from that Baptist church, or still there on University Avenue, First Baptist Church. There was a service station there, and that's where my husband and a lot of teachers get their gas, and they could get it on time there and pay at the end of the month. And the owner of that service station asked my husband, what on earth, where are you going? Why are you using so much gas? And he says, I'm taking my girlfriend back and forth to Daytona Beach. She's pledging a sorority.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
So I made it the hard way, pledging a sorority and doing internship. They just came at the same time, and I had to stick it out.
Wow.
So that's how I became a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority on campus at Bethune-Cookman.
Very cool. Awesome. So did your being in a sorority come back up while you were working in Gainesville? How did it help you in this town?
When I came, as a matter of fact, after I did my internship and after I graduated from Bethune-Cookman, I really wasn't gone too long from Gainesville, because Professor Jones offered me a job, not teaching, but he needed a secretary. So I was lucky again. He hired me, and I was his secretary for 3 years. From 57, I believe it was 57, that's on my resume, I think, I was a secretary from 1957 until 1959 for 3 years as Professor A. Quinn Jones secretary. And from from that position in '59, I took a job teaching junior high math at Lincoln High School because my math and accounting and my degree qualified me to teach math up to the 7th grade. I couldn't go to 8th or 9th grade until I take more math classes, but I was eligible to do the 7th grade math. And so I taught 7th grade in math and beginning in 1959. But at the same time, I commuted to Ocala, to a junior college down in Ocala, and took the courses to become certified to teach math through the 9th grade.
Wow. Awesome.
Sorry. Did you always prefer teaching math, or?
I like teaching math. I really did. I guess because of the accounting and the business courses I took and the business curriculum, I kind of enjoyed it. But now when you go above 9th grade, I wasn't too interested in it.
Yeah.
No.
I understand. I think that's when I stopped liking math, after like 9th grade. So I understand completely.
Can you tell us what it was like working personally with Professor Jones?
It was a pleasure. He was such a gentleman.
Really?
He walked lightly, he was not loud and boisterous, but he was a man of integrity, and you respected him. He was a very respectable young man, Professor Akron Jones. I had no problems. I look forward to taking my little shorthand pad in his office, taking dictation, and working for him. I had no problems with working for him. I enjoyed working with Professor Jones. Very considerate, too.
Yeah. So we hear so much about Lincoln High School from the students and people who went there. But what was it like teaching at an all-black high school in Gainesville at that time, or working as a secretary? What was that like?
Working as a secretary, during the 3 years I worked as a secretary, that was a beautiful time in my life. Because the teachers were serious, they were dedicated, they had an interest in the students respected the teachers respected the students. We did home visitations. We knew the parents, and at that time we had what was called a register. It was a book, maybe like 8.5 by 11 or 14, which was I call it the Bible. So you had the records of your students in there, all of your classes, their grades, where they lived, their parents. And we had to make home visitations. We had to visit those parents. We had to go out in the bushes to find these and visit with those parents. And parents received us. And parents didn't just, take sides with the students. They would listen to the teachers. They respected the teachers. Teachers dressed like teachers. They walked like teachers. They act like teachers. They respected the students. But something changed. Something changed over the years.
That's true. If I can ask, so
I enjoyed teaching.
really,
As a matter of fact, some of the students now who are teaching, they were my students when I taught back at Lincoln High School. One in particular is, I could mention several, Ruth Hickman up in Newberry, Carolyn Whitehead, we lost her about a couple of months ago, Carolyn Whitehead, Angela Jones, and I know students, students love the teachers, and I think we loved our students too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we enjoyed our students. Those were the good days. Yeah.
okay. Mm-hmm. So in Gainesville during that time, where were the places that made up Black social life? Where could people meet, get together? Where did young people hang out?
When I came here, I wasn't that young. Well, I guess I was 21 years old. I was about 21 years old. I can't really think of a place where we could go and just, we have places to go now and hang out. Like as far as not even eating places. I remember my husband, when he first came here, he said in '55, there was not a restaurant that that he mentioned that he could go to. They went to people's homes, and the people did the cooking in the homes. And that's how my husband ate most of the time when he was here from '55 until '57, until times got a little better. He would go to, and then there was a place called Mama Lowe's on 6th Street over there in front of the police station. It was, it's a church now, over there on 6th Street, across from Banks and Cosby's youth building there on 6th Street. That was a restaurant where a lot of the black people would eat, and then on 5th Avenue, that was Mom's Kitchen, I think it was. But we just cooked at home. I remember when we built this house in 1954, I was teaching, and of course, and cooking too, but raising Stephen and Drew, because I have 2 more sons, but they weren't born when when I first started teaching. But I had 2 boys too, and when we got married, Stephen was in like 7th grade. He was at Lincoln High School, and Andrew was a 5th grader. He went to elementary school over at Akron Jones. So we had to work and cook too. And I remember during that time there was a food truck. Can't think of the name of the food truck, but you could order food by the month, and they would bring it and put it in the freezer, like pot pies, hot dogs, and stuff like that, hamburger patties and stuff like that. And so that's what we did during those days. A lot of times we didn't go to places like Publix, and at least where we go now. No, and then too, there was a store like Robinson's Market, or so you could go and get food there too. Not a Publix, not a grocery store like a Publix or Winn-Dixie or like a A&P. But Stephen told me, that was our oldest son, Judge Mickle. He says, "Mom," he says, "I don't ever want to see a hot dog. I don't want to see any more pot pie." He said, hamburger. He had enough of hamburgers, pot pies, and hot dogs. It was so funny. Oh my God. And I can agree with him, but that's how we survive, and had to do what you have to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever partake in like gardening, or like maybe growing some of your own food down here? I don't know.
Growing veggies, whatnot. That was something we didn't do. We never did like having a garden, having all this property. We should have had a garden, but I don't know who would have tended to it, because we were. I taught adult education at night. My husband taught tailoring at night for Santa Fe, for the school board. Not making excuses, but a garden just didn't enter the picture because
it needs time, and I understand.
So how would you describe the neighborhood where you raised your children, and how did the neighborhood impact your family as you grew?
Well, my neighborhood where we raised the children were more or less here in Lincoln Estates. And at that time, I think Lincoln Estates was the best thing we could ask for when we built back in 1964. I thank Mr. Phil Emmer, because when I came to Gainesville in '57, there weren't houses like the houses now we see out here in Lincoln Estates. Not that they are that great, but they're houses. Most, they were tin tops, tin roofs, little shacks, rundown. So if you wanted a decent place to stay, you would probably have to check with maybe someone like a teacher, or someone, who had a job and making maybe a little decent salary and could afford a little better than the houses that I found when I came here. There were none that I know of, other than the like Mr. Norton. He was a the supervisor of education for African Americans, and we had other superintendents for like Mr. Talbot. He was more or less for the other non-black teachers, and we just. But getting back to Mr. Emmer, I remember meeting Mr. Emmer. As you come into Lincoln Estates, the first house right there, on I believe it's 11th Street, that was the office. And Mr. Emmer's from Miami. I think he passed several years ago. He and his father were in the building business in Miami. And they came in, this area out here was just nothing but trees. He took over this area, but in addition to just selling you a house, he would try to educate us, encourage us to go to school, to learn something about, business and housing and how you're going to pay for it and budget. And he would sit you down in his office and talk to you, not just try to sell your house. And I can appreciate that about Mr. Emmer. He did a lot for the people out here in Lincoln Estates. Phil Emmer.
Wow. So you talked about how you guys had this house built. Did you guys design it yourselves when you had it designed?
Yes, we did, and I wonder why we did that. I didn't have sense enough, and my husband busy doing tailoring and on different committees. We never did think of that. People are supposed to be educated. Why didn't we think in terms of buying, getting a blueprint or a plan? People get plans, But here in Stephen, we were renting a house on 7th Avenue. That was our third house we rented since we got married in '57. And we were staying there in Mr. Arthur W. Neal's house because he had built a home out here on 11th Avenue, right below Dr. Banks' house. And he was the new principal of the new school. And so his house became available to rent. So we rented that house from Mr. Neely. And that was like home for me. It was a large house, it was nice and roomy, and as a matter of fact, this is the first piece of furniture right here, this dining room suite that we bought from Sears Roebuck at that time, and it was on, Sears Roebuck was downtown on Main Street where a lot of the other things are happening now. But it was just no place, that you could really call home. And so that was the third time moving. And so one day sitting at this dining room table there on 7th Avenue and 10th Street right there on the corner, I talked to my husband and I talked to Stephen. And my husband was not too interested in, he was all right with where we were. We had 3 bedrooms, and right on the corner there, a traffic light, and there's Acre and Jones School right there on the corner. And so he wasn't really, but I got Stephen, the oldest son, and Stephen and I sat at the table, and I had a notepad, and I started drawing out the plans for a house.
Wow.
On a piece of paper and a notebook. And just from looking at magazines, I didn't ever think about ordering a plan. And Mr. Emmer, I don't recall him, saying that, the first thing a homeowner should do, is to, because most of the houses were model homes, And a few out here, like the house over here, it was more or less special design, but the other houses out here, it was just, you just pick the one you want. But I kind of talked with Mr. M, and we told him what we had in mind. I told him I didn't want a picture, what we called a picture window at that time. Picture windows were very stylish back then. And for some reason, I didn't want a picture window. But I said, well, what's the difference in a picture window? You got a glass door. But for some reason, I just didn't want a picture window, and I imagine he suggested a sliding glass door. But who wanted a sliding glass door on the front of the house? And I look at that and I said,
that's brilliant.
I don't think I would do that now. And then we never go inside that door because it's like a wall. It's like a wall. We'd never go. If in the event of an emergency, you can get out. You know, you can open and get out in a hurry. If it was a window there, you couldn't very well get out as fast. But you could open the sliding glass door. But I don't even think I had that in mind at that time, trying to get out in case of a fire. I was just trying to come up with an idea about a house. But no, we didn't have a plan. We just looked in magazines and tried to do it ourselves.
So can you tell us about any of the neighbors here at that time?
At that time, Earl Howard, the house to the left over there, was here. He was one of the first ones, and Mr. Emma used his house as a display to encourage people, you know, to build houses out here. And his house was built, and my neighbor Vivian Fowler house was here. And the house right next to hers, there must have been 5 houses on this street that were here when we built. About 5 that he had already built on 14th Avenue. But those are my neighbors, immediate neighbors right across the street, Vivian and Earl Howard. Very few houses right here then.
Okay. So if we can get more into your experiences with UF here in the community, what was your first interaction with UF after you had lived in Gainesville?
When the schools were integrated, teachers were moved different places. And a lot of the teachers went to Gainesville High, a lot went different places, but they sent me to the county office. I guess it's because of my business major, I guess, and they assigned me to Garner Williams, who was the personnel director at that time, Garner Williams, over personnel. And so I worked with Garner Williams for 5 years when Lincoln closed. And I was in charge of non-instructional personnel, placing substitute teachers. And Garner Williams was more or less doing the instructional personnel, making sure certification, and then I traveled with her on several trips recruiting black teachers because we needed to recruit black teachers at that time. We didn't have the ratio, and so she was a wonderful person to work for or with. And most of my 5 years was with her. And I worked year-round. Hours were long. We worked from 8 until 5. And the boys were, you know, getting to be larger and in school and needed someone at home earlier and not working full time. And so I put in for an appointment to be transferred when a vacancy became available to go back into teaching. And so Mr. Dukes hired me at Eastside High School. And I was there for 21 years. And I was able to be at home earlier, and I had more time in the summers with the boys. And but I enjoyed working at Lincoln High School. I enjoyed working at the school board office. It's called the Manning Building now, but that was our superintendent of instruction. Where Kirby Smith is now, that was the school board office at that time. And that's where my office was, in that building.
So you were at Eastside High School for 21 years.
21 years.
How did you see it change in that time?
When I at Eastside High School, that was a different kind of change. Now at Lincoln High School, you know, it was just kids were more respectful. We had hands-on hands with the parents, and we visited parents, and we teachers act like teachers, dress like teachers. We got respect and all. But when I got to Eastside, Eastside was a wonderful place to work. Had a good relationship with John Dukes was my principal, and then at one time we had May Isler was principal there. The only thing at Eastside that was different, we were more or less integrated then. And when I went to Eastside, I had to, my position was a CBE teacher, cooperative business education teacher, where you teach students a half a day and you go in the evenings and you visit them in the workplace. So you have to find the jobs for them and place your students on these jobs for a half day.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed working at Eastside and doing the co-op education. I had my first job at Eastside, I had predominantly white students in my class. I had very few black students in my class during that time. And we got along just fine. I get letters now from that class.
Wow.
I have letters now from one or two of those students talking about our experience. I had students working at the University of Florida. I had them working at the North Florida Regional Hospital, doctor's offices. I had one girl working at one of the banks downtown, and she sent me a card not long ago saying, well, she said, I'm retired now. She had over 30-some years, Rhonda Blanton. And then the parents were, we had fundraisers, we had car washes, and parents worked with you when we had like yard sales and raising money to go to state for competition. Parents, we had a very good relationship with the parents, the students. It was a wonderful experience working at Eastside. I never would forget it. There was Key Club, Mr. Sam Welker was over Key Club. We had Bob Dykes, they was assistant principals. Those were good days at Eastside.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
you
it
said,
makes it, I feel good too because, when you can train students and they are employable and can stay on a job, a lot of them, they never did go on to college. This is something they wanted to do, just work in an office. Some students don't want to go to college. They're happy working in a doctor's office, university, at the banks, city hall. I never will forget the tag office out on 441. 441, that was our tag office for years. I had students working there practically, so many students working at the tag office. And it was a good experience because they were learning on the job. We would teach in the classroom, but they would go out and actually apply that on the job. We didn't have computers then. We had IBM typewriters. We had the first kind of computer we had was like a Tandy computer, I think, a Tandy. And then we had the IBM electronic typewriters. And I just learned right along with the students.
wow.
Because I learned on a Royal typewriter. But I tell you, at Lincoln High School, when I taught business at Lincoln High School, I had girls doing like 70 and 75 words a minute on manual typewriters.
Wow.
On a manual typewriter. And the shorthand, they did take shorthand dictation. They did the dictaphone. And some of the students were working at as a court reporter, learning how to do the court reporting and whatnot. So it was a lot of on-the-job training and hands-on experience that make these students very competent.
Yeah. It seems that you kind of value what you said, something that like you said, making students kind of like employable somewhere, even if it's outside of a university setting, outside of college. Not every student wants, or do you see the value of trades? I should say. Would you say that? Would you say that you still value those things, like trades?
Learning, oh yes.
Learning trades.
Yes, I think we need more of that today. I see students walking here, the streets out here in Lincoln Estates. If I could just pick them up and just take them to Santa Fe and place them. They have everything right there at Santa Fe for our children to learn to use their hands. They're all not going to be doctors and nurses and lawyers and judges. They need to learn to use their hands. As some students don't know how to use a hammer. They will come and ask to mow your lawn or something, and they don't have any tools. They may come and want to paint or something. They don't have a paintbrush. They need to be taught. This is something that I taught with someone just ran for office. The last name is Nook or Book. He was over the police department at Santa Fe College for years, and he retired from being over the police and safety security at Santa Fe College. And he's one of our senators now. I can't think of it. Ed Book or Ed Book. Does that name ring a bell? Ed Book.
Not to me.
But anyway, he's one of the new. I got to look him up because this is what he's interested in, and he's going to try to help make a difference. And I told Doris Edwards, who is our Lincoln Estates speaker right here for the Lincoln Estates at some of the meetings and whatnot, we need to help these students to get into some kind of trade. They need to learn a trade. And I don't think they know how to get there. But we need somebody to know that they can place confidence in that they're trying to help them to become a better person and become, a wage earner. Because they're doing nothing now but walking the streets getting into trouble. And we see it every day on the news. Just turn on the news and we can see what's happening. That's what I would really love to work with.
Yeah.
Making a difference in these students to learn a trade.
So you had 4 sons of your own. How did you encourage them through their schooling experiences and to universities?
Well, actually, during the time when they were in elementary, high school, we didn't have the computers and libraries to go to. But the first thing we bought was a set of encyclopedias as beginning teachers, so we still had that set of encyclopedias. And so I can say that we just instilled upon them that they had to do their studying. And before there were any, pleasures or going places and movies or whatever, they had to study. They had to put in that time and study. So after they did their chores, they had to get the books out. They just get the encyclopedias and they sat and read and got their work out. But we had to have a schedule. They had a schedule. I didn't have any girls, so they had to wash dishes too. Yeah. So we had a schedule for them to, when was your time to do dishes? You have to do the dishes, and then if you're going to we did give them a little money at the end of the week, for pocket change. And if they didn't do their chores, they didn't get rewarded. Yeah, they had to do that.
Yeah, that sounds familiar to me. I also have 3 brothers, and my mom was the same way. She's like, okay, one of you guys are doing these dishes today, right. And I don't know, it's not gonna be me. One of you guys is cleaning this kitchen and
you ought to work it out. As long as the dishes get done, it's your time. Now, if you want to do it for me tonight, the brothers will get together. You can do mine, and I'll do yours the next night. But they worked that the dishes got washed. Though.
That's right.
Yeah, and the same thing on Saturdays before cartoons. On Saturday mornings, they had to clean the bathrooms.
Yeah.
And I remember Andrew, I remember him, I never will forget it. He hadn't done his chores, like cleaning the bathroom or whatever he was supposed to do that Saturday morning. Had the TV on. I said, no TV, you haven't done your chores. And he wanted to challenge me. Dad was not here, And so he's going to get up, and I turned it off. I said, no TV, you haven't done your chores. He gets up and he turns the TV off. And what did he want to do that for? I just deliberately turned it back on. I said, now listen, don't touch it. If you touch it again, you're going to hear from your dad. Hear from your dad. And he didn't. Whatever, my husband would back me, and then I would back him. They would go to him sometime and ask for things, and want the privileges. He says, check with your mom. If it's all right with her, I'll consider it. But we had to be on the same page. I couldn't say yes, and he's going to say no because we're not together. But most of the times we were on the same page, and I really think that's what got us through.
Wow.
Wonderful. So in those days here in town, did you guys feel any racial tension or face any discrimination that you can remember explicitly?
I cannot remember any really real racial tension. You knew you were black and you did certain things. If you were white, you do certain things. So, we didn't have any racial tension, No. We just went with the flow, and we just tried to go by the rules and try to become a good citizen and teach our children, you know, to become good citizens. And, you know, if you eat, you got to work. We got to do some chores. You got to do some chores.
That's right.
So a lot of people know, of course, the name of your son, Judge Mickle, and that he is one of the integrators at UF and one of the pioneers, the second graduate from our law school. How did you prepare him for and encourage him through that process of kind of being by himself as a Black student at UF?
Well, it's a long story because first when Stephen finished high school, he went to Bethune-Cookman for a year. And that's where he went to school. And we were, you know, happy because he went to the school where we went. You know, we went to Bethune-Cookman. But then at that time, there was a young man by the name of Neil Pearson, years ago. I never will forget Neil Pearson. It was doing the integration and all this. And I don't know how we met Neil Pearson, I really don't. But Neil Pearson, we got to look that. I did have Neil Pearson's address at one time. He kept in touch with us for years. I think he's out in Texas. I don't know where Neil is now. But I can find him if I need to. But Neil talked with us and was telling us about, you know, Virgil Hawkins and what was going on. And this is the time. And he knew that Stephen had just graduated. And so we talked with Stephen. And this is something he wanted to do. So he finished Cookman one year. And he was forthcoming, you know, putting himself out there, you know, knowing that it wouldn't be easy. But since he wanted to do it, we didn't stop him. But we were living on 7th Avenue and 10th Street during those days, and Stephen would walk from 7th Avenue to the university. And he would tell us, you know, about what he went through, you know, but, you know, he seemed to be able to endure it, and this is what he wanted to do, so we didn't get in his way. And we just, you know, said, I hope that things will get better. And we could, you know, we could relate to how Stephen must have felt, because I know how I felt when I was working in personnel. I wanted to go ahead and get a master's degree. And Garner Williams told me that if I gave up my lunch hour, you know, you could leave early and start on your classwork at the university. And I did that, and I remember being in a class of 50 or more people. I didn't know anybody, and I was perhaps maybe the only Black person in there. May have been one other, but it's kind of terrible feeling. I mean, they don't know you, I don't know you, you don't know me. But there was one person in particular that I will always remember. You may know her. She was a teacher, I think, at P.K. Young, and I think she moved up to principal. Oh, I've got a mental block now. What is her name? She was in that class, and she just looked at me and smiled one day, you know, and it meant so much, you know. Just to have someone smile at you, you know, but not to know your name and not to say anything, not to speak to you, it's a bad feeling. So I can imagine what Stephen went through, you know. But we encourage him to, if that's what he wants to do. And when he finished the university, I think he tried teaching down south for 1 year. And he's learned that teaching was not for him, and so he came home and sold a car and went to law school. And the rest is history. He just kept going up, up, up. But that's something he wanted to do. We didn't push him, you know, say, well, you need to do this now, you do this. And no, Stephen did that. And we just encouraged him. We didn't stop him at all.
So in one of the interviews that SPOP, our program, has with him earlier, he mentions that his parents introduced him to George Allen, which was a huge reason that he decided to go. How did you guys know George Allen?
I didn't know George Allen. My husband probably knew George Allen. And I knew Virgil Hawkins because when I was a student at Bethune-Cookman, that was during the time Virgil Hawkins was on campus as a teacher. And so that name rang a bell for me, Virgil S. Hawkins. but my husband knew of Alan.
Very cool. Very cool. So going forward into working with your community now, how do you feel reflecting on what times were and looking at today? Do you feel hopeful or proud or?
Looking at the community? Yes, I'm always hopeful. We just never should give up. We just need to push forward and do the best we can to make it a better place. And by providing programs that will change the minds of some of our young people, and all of this comes through education. And we need to work with the parents. And parents need to be parents and step up to the plate and be the adult in the house. We should not let our students, tell us what to do. We are the adults. We have more experience, and we should not be. I'm not your buddy. I'm your parent. And I think we need to play the role of being the parent more, and you just can't. You can't socialize and be a buddy with your children. You have to have some guidelines. You have to respect yourself. You got to have rules and regulations, and abide by the law. And I think if we do more, something has to. The answer's out there. We just need to keep searching for it. The answer's out there. Our children need to be taught. They don't know unless we lead them and guide them. And we just need to, I think we need to demand more, and we need to live the life that they will respect us. They can't see us doing things, and we're doing it, and then we're going to turn around and say, you can't do this, or you're not supposed, but then they look at you. You're supposed to be the example. And I think it's all about respect. It's all about respect.
I like that point you're talking about. It seems that both you and your husband have a respect for education and for educators. And earlier you were talking about at your high school in Jacksonville that you kind of recalled fond memories of your high school teachers. Can you talk a little bit more about how maybe those relationships inspired you to get into education, maybe?
Well, when I look back and reflect on my classroom there at Stanton, especially not just my business education teachers, even the principal or the dean of girls, the whole staff, it seemed as though they were the adults, the leaders, and the people we're supposed to be, they're supposed to be setting examples for us. And it's somehow we just looked up to them as being the example. This is how it should be. This is how we should act, and this is what we should say and how we should say it. It's all about respect and the teachers playing their role. And I can remember the teachers really wanting to help you, wanting you, to do well and encouraging you to do well. And they were more like your parents away from home. That's the way I see it. They were like, you wouldn't dare disrespect. I wouldn't dare disrespect Nellie Von Russell, who was my shorthand teacher, or Mrs. Alice Robinson, my typing teacher. This just didn't register in my mind to be disrespectful to them. These are my teachers. They're teaching me. So it just, I think it's because of the way they carried themselves. I'm not your buddy, I'm your teacher. And they had demands of us, And it was the same thing when I went to Cookman. You're a student in the class, you had to get your work. I'm not here as your buddy, I'm here as your teacher. And they just carried themselves as, I say, role models. You had something to kind of pattern after. Not saying that teachers not like that now. They are. They have some good teachers, there's some good role models. I'm not saying teachers are bad now. Teachers are good. But our parents need to get in there and help the teachers and not side with the students all the time. You need to see both sides.
You mentioned the impact of your principal, Mr. Terrell, was it?
My high school principal?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Terrell.
Terrell, okay, got you. Can you elaborate more on his impact in your life and in your community?
Well, actually, the only time I really had to deal with Mr. Terrell is that I knew he was a principal. I knew where his office was. And I knew that if you didn't behave, you would have to hear from, you're going to hear from Mr. Terrell. Now, Mr. Terrell walked very lightly. You didn't hear him coming down the hall, you know, bouncing and making a lot of noise down the hall. He was soft-spoken, but it's the way he carried himself, his image, and how he talked with the students. He's not your buddy, I'm not your friend, I'm not your pal, you know. He was just more of a role model, and somebody you would dare disrespect Mr. Terrell, not the principal. And you didn't hear much talking back and cursing and acting ugly and acting not with the principal, and nor the teachers. I don't remember our teachers hearing our teachers react in any way like some of our students are acting today. And things that are happening today in the classroom, students and teachers. I didn't hear about that when I was coming up. That's been some time ago now. But you're still teaching too, and you're still students. So the times are just different. I think it's just a lot needs to be done. A lot needs to be done, and the parents can help us a lot.
Got you. So with the importance of the schools, what was the impact when Lincoln closed down? And
the impact when Lincoln closed?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, it was terrible. It was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. We felt, and I felt, that it really didn't have to close.
What happened?
Well, it was we call it inequality. I remember a lot of our textbooks are hand-me-down textbooks. We couldn't get some books and supplies that we need. It was a difference over here than it's over here. And all we were asking for is just, you know, equality. Not necessarily that our children have to go to GHS or GHS students have to come to us. We could have stayed at Lincoln, but just make it equal. You know, give us, you know, what the other people have. On the other side of that, we need new books. We need equipment. We need this, and we need that, the same. And I really think that things really changed in the community and in our schools when the schools integrated. It didn't have to be that way, though. And it still doesn't have to be that way. We can always do better. But it seemed as though things just got worse. It's sad to say that, though, but that's just the way I feel. Not putting blame and fault, you know. I'm just saying that just make it equal. And it's not that. Just make it equal, not just the school, just like the hotels. Just make that equal. If I want to go to Holiday Inn and get a room, a book in, I should be able to do that, just as you're able to do it. Restaurants the same way. I don't ever remember going into a restaurant when I first came to Gainesville. Didn't even know where they were, you know, if there are not that many, but yeah. Same thing with housing, with any of the housing, schools, businesses, borrowing money, educating our children, tuition. Just make it equal. If we meet the guidelines, if you have the credentials to enter school, you finish your high school requirements, and you have a good record, why is it you can't apply if you pass the test, the entrance test, why is it you can't go to that school? And I think things would be much better if we not tried to be separate. We need to, give everybody, we're all human beings.
That's right.
We all breathe the same air. We just need to treat everybody the way you want to be treated. You wouldn't want to be treated different than the way someone treats me. I get the best of everything. You can't go where I go. It's not right.
That's true.
Not right. I think it's getting better though. But the loss that we've suffered, so much loss, so much tragedies, and all we have to do is just try to make it right. But it's never too late.
That's right.
Never too late. But it's getting better.
So what changed in the community when the school closed down?
In the community? Well, I think parents, the parents are unhappy. The parents are very unhappy. But there's a reason that some of the parents are unhappy. Some parents are not doing what they're supposed to do, what they could do to make life better for them. Number one, they need a job. They need to be employed, but they got to be employable. And they need to find time. It's hard, because it was hard for me. When I went to school, my mom didn't have the money just to lay on the table and say, hey, go to Cookman. I didn't know where my room and board was coming from. But you got to have it in here, if you want to make a difference. And you can't thrive on excuses. And that's where I think a lot of our people are, they don't want to do what it takes to be trained to get a good job. And you have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice and put that time in, because no one's going to give it to you, and you're not going to appreciate it anyway if it's given to you. You don't appreciate it unless you've earned it, and you're still not going to be happy. So I think it's a lot that we as a people need to do to better ourselves for the better things of life. And if we don't have it, can't find out a way, reach out. Somebody's out there to help you. Yeah, somebody's out there to help you. You got to let it be known, that you got the desire and the will. This is what you want to do to make a difference, and it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to come and just give it to you. You got to earn it, and that's when you appreciate it.
That's true. So today, with your own grandchildren, what do you tell them about you guys' struggles and about how you, your husband, and your children have made change and done things like integrate and fought for where we are now?
Well, actually, I don't remember just really sitting down and telling them, talking to them about it. They can see it. And so I don't think I remember just sitting down with them. But this is how it was with me, and I didn't do this because I didn't have that. We just try to bring them up that this is what you have to do in order to be successful. And not because I had it really rough, or something like that, but we got to put the platform out there for them, and directing them, this is what you do in order to be successful. And you have to pay the price. You have to do that. Now, we will help you, but you have to make the effort, and you got to want to do it. And not because, don't do it because Stephen did this or because Drew did that. And I have a son in Atlanta. Daryl is a veterinarian, and I have a son in Ocala who's a teacher. But I don't remember. They're just looking at the examples, I guess. And how we try, that's why I said the parent. It starts with the parent. You got to set the example. Not that we're great examples or nothing like that, but we try to be. But we do have some parents that I think is not trying enough. 12 years ago at my church, Mount Carmel, I realized we did not have any kind of training program there at the church. We have Bible study and choir rehearsal and 11 o'clock service. So what are we doing for the children? You know, the children of the church. Are we to have any kind of training programs here for the children? And it just pressed upon my heart that we just need to, we have quite a few retired teachers at our church too. And I was thinking, we have retirees, we have educators here at the church. What are we doing to help these children? And I look around in the church, I didn't see anything really. And so I went to the pastor, not our pastor now, but we had another pastor at that time, and I told him how I felt about it. I think our church should have some kind of a training program. And I told him what was on my heart. And he says, well, what do you have in mind? And I said, well, we could do something like an academy on a Saturday, maybe a couple of hours, because I know students are busy during the week and with school activities after school. And I said, something like helping them with their homework, providing activities for them, exploring, taking them on trips, you know, just so they can see things right here in Gainesville. You know, a lot of them don't know what's going on right here in Gainesville. It's not that it takes a lot of money. And he says, but keep working on it. And so I kept working on it, and it kept coming across my mind. And I said, well, I went back to the pastor. His pastor name was Newsom, Reverend Newsom at that time. And so they approved it, and I said, well, what will we call it? He said, well, what do you have in mind? I said, well, really, several names. He says, well, right now, just call it Saturday Academy. I said, sounds good to me. So I didn't think about a name anymore. It's a Saturday Academy. He said, well, get busy, get busy. And so the first person I called was a friend of mine who was a retiree. She was a librarian at Lincoln, at Lake Forest. Her name is Tennessee Jones, a dear friend of mine. I went to her and we sat down and talked about it. And she said, well, yes, I'll work with you on it. And the two of us together brought this to fruition. We called it the Saturday Academy. We didn't have a paperclip. Not a paperclip at that time. So together we did form the Saturday Academy, and we were able to get a grant for like 5 or 6 years from the city of Gainesville to help fund the academy. But the sad thing about it, we had the teachers who volunteered, a lot of retired teachers volunteered, but our problem was getting the students there. Now that tells me that's a parent, that's part of the parents' fault. We'll help you. If necessary, we'll come pick them up. But you need to get these kids ready. You know, hey, it's Saturday morning, the bus will be here, such and such. The kids are not ready. The parents are not, sometimes not even at the door. So that's why I said the parents got to do something. Students want to do a lot. Now the grades were kindergarten through 5th grade. And if you have any students, and we started with the, of course, Gardenia Gardens and the other housing, associations, and we recruited at Williams Elementary, Lake Forest. As a matter of fact, we had flyers in all the schools. But we know that it would be problems with students coming from other places other than, Southeast. We thought maybe most of the kids would be from Southeast, and students who were having trouble in school. But our problem was getting the students there. Now, we can't do everything. We provide the facility, we got a bus to pick you up, we provide a hot lunch, we have materials for that, we have teachers that help the kids. Our problem is parents. Now you tell me, what can we do about that? How do we educate the parents? The students who really need it are not there. So if students are passing, it's really no need for them to come. They're welcome, but we would expect students who need the training, but the parents really cannot understand that, hey, my child is failing, And even if he was, even if he was passing, you want to get him pushed ahead even more. If the facility is right there in your neighborhood, as a matter of fact, you could walk the child there. So that's why I say we have a lot to do with parents. We had put flyers out. We visited the parents. They promise you they're going to have them ready, but they don't show up.
Got you.
So I retired 3 years ago from the academy because of poor health, but the academy is still up and running, and they have less students now than they had when my coworker and I organized it some 12 years ago.
Well, got you. So you retired from the Saturday Academy. Is there anything you're still involved with right now?
I am still involved. I don't go on Saturdays now. We're there from Saturdays from 11 until 1, but I do recruit. I still do recruit, and I call parents that I know. Even I go to houses here in Lincoln Estates. I've gone to 3 or 4 houses here in Lincoln Estates, and parents have promised me that they would get the students. They're interested. I give them the application. My phone, I have a business card. Give them my card. If you need transportation, give me a call. And nothing happens.
Got you.
Now, that's heartbreaking. That's right out here in Lincoln Estates. On this street that I live on, I see children in the yard, and I stop by, introduce myself to their parents. I think the children will want to come, but the parents got to get them there, either provide a means for them to get there. So you tell me, I don't know what the problem is. And if the parent is having problems getting the children there, they should know that they can't get them there, but let us know, and we will come pick them up and bring them back.
Yeah, so it's definitely clear that education and the value of education is something that you and your family take seriously.
Yeah.
And continue to do so. So I want to ask, and this may be some of our, we're going to start winding down on questions soon, I believe. So I'll say this. Other than, I guess, parent involvement, like you've been saying, other issues in Florida education have been kind of attacks on Black history. You may have heard about them.
Yes, I've heard about that.
So can you tell us not only what you think about those attacks, but also how did you, or what does Black education history, how is that important to you, and why is that important to you?
I think all history is important. I think all history is important. And I agree. I really think that Black history, since we're talking about Black history, I would agree that it should be taught in the schools. I really do. I think just like any other, we learn about other histories. Yeah. And I don't see anything that would be wrong with it. I think it might even help, because the children don't know if they want to know what happened, or just like any other history. We read about it, but we survive it. We know about it. It happened, and it's knowledge. So I would say that I think it should be. I think it should be included. And then when it's not included, I think things like this is really what makes things worse in our world, in our community, because we're trying to not include some things and want to include other things. And just like with the textbooks, we just want equality. Give us through some, I have books, I think I have a few books here now that were handed down when I was at Lincoln High School. And it had other schools' names in those books. Well, those books came from what we call the county warehouse distribution services. And those books were brought to the Black schools. So maybe it was not enough funds to buy books for all the schools, and some had to get hand-me-downs, and some got new. But if that's the case, then put some new some years put some new ones here, and then the hand-me-downs at the other schools, and make it, equal, vice versa. Not that we have to get, every school has to get, a new book every time, but if it's not enough to be distributed into our county, have some type of plan wherein, sometime your time will come up to get the new books, but I don't think that happened. And I have some books in my office in there that they have some, library books, that they didn't want, and so I have them. But
I'd love to see them. I'd love to see
go
them.
through them and find them. I'll pull out one or two of them. But anyway, it's just a lot of work to be done.
Got you. So is there anything that we didn't touch on that you'd like to share with us?
I think Gainesville is a lovely place. I like Gainesville. And it has changed. It has changed a lot. I don't particularly like the way downtown is right now because I'm so used to the way it was when I came here. When I came here, there was a Wilson's apartment store downtown. There was a Ruddy's shoe store downtown. Well, I don't recognize downtown now, the way it is now downtown, but it's different, Time brings on change. I'm not saying it's bad, but nothing remains the same. But as long as it's good and no one is being hurt. And as long as people enjoying themselves and treating people right and fair, let them enjoy themselves, it's, everything will change in due time, the next 50 years, Lincoln Estates may not look like it looks now. So things change. So I'm not saying downtown is bad, but I'm just saying how it was before. It was very nice before, and it's nice now. We have a lot of new additions downtown, and just hope it'll stay that way, and we won't be safe. You got to give people what they want sometimes. As long as they're doing it within the law and not hurting anybody, there's nothing wrong with it.
Okay. And if you could put in an essence of one thing of what Gainesville has been to you in your time here, what would you say?
Gainesville has been wonderful, all in all to me. I've been here over 50 years in this house. I came here in 57 to intern. Gainesville means a lot to me. Gainesville gave me a livelihood, number one. It gave me a place to practice teaching, hired me. My children went to school here. I've met a lot of people, a lot of good people, not just, all races. I know a lot of people, different organizations, and people have been good to me. And they've been good to a lot of people, not only me. So I love Gainesville, and if I had to, I don't know of any place I'd want to move if I had to move tomorrow. Another place that I would say I like better than Gainesville, because I don't really know. I know about Gainesville. I love Gainesville. And I had a livelihood here. I raised a family here. We were able to do a lot here. I appreciate my husband, who taught so many to swim. And he worked really hard with community organizations, and I love my church. I love the organizations I'm in, and the University of Florida. What more could you ask for? The University of Florida has been good to me also.
That's awesome.
So I think Gainesville is a good place to live.
That's wonderful.
So
good to hear.
yes. Well, from a singer to another singer, I of course wanted to ask if you would like to sing us any song before we close out your interview.
Oh my God. Now?
if you'd like to.
Comfortable.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I don't know if any of the things was the group called. What's the group called?
Sweet Notes.
Yes, any of the songs that the Sweet Notes like to perform.
Oh my God. Let's see. Let's see here.
Oh, she's got the book.
It's gonna be serious.
Cool. Unless you want that one too. No. No.
Oh my God. This is our notebook.
Oh, yes.
Let's see the sweet notes. Yeah, they knew I was doing this today. Oh, sweet notes, you don't know me. May the good Lord bless and keep you, whether near or far away. May you find that long awaited golden day today. May your troubles all be small ones, and your fortune 10 times 10. May the good Lord bless and keep you till we meet again. May you walk with sunlight shining and a bluebird in every tree. May there be a silver lining back of every cloud you see. Fill your dreams with sweet tomorrows. Never mind what might have been. May the good Lord bless and keep you till we meet again. May the good Lord bless and keep you till we meet again.
Yay!
Wow.
That's one of our closing songs.
Well, on that note, may the good Lord bless and keep you always
you.
as well. And thank you so much.
Enjoy
Thank you
it.
so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. So one more thing we're going to do is white balance here.
Can you put this up here?
All right. Is it all right if I touch your lapel with the microphone?
That's fine. Beautiful. I wish you could. I didn't do any special preparation for the. I didn't know I was going to be in, but it's okay. I said I didn't get any do any preparation for photographing.
Do any
Oh my
preparation.
Don't worry.
You're
Oh my
ready.
God! I went to church this morning. I said, "Oh, just keep on." We had communion,
Oh, right.
and we installed 2 new deacons at our church this morning, so we had to
Oh, wow.
have a special program after the sermon.
I got a job for you.
Okay.
Just hold that paper right there. So that there.
So to stay up on.
Oh, this is good.
This'll tell
Put
the
it
camera
on.
what's white, and then everything will come out beautiful. Just a second. Ooh, that did a job.